Okay, so we're actually live, show number 97. I can't believe we've made it to 97. That's pretty awesome. And we've got amazing guests tonight. Tonight's show is on some really great information. We're trying to help people tap into their inner creative side, understanding how to bring out your inner artist. It's pretty amazing when you have these tools and these amazing inspirational instructors at your disposal to give you this inspiration. We have one of the best with us today, a gentleman by the name of Ron Clifford. Ron is a master in the Arcanum, and he's just a really great inspirational instructor and teacher and friend and good guy. And Ron, it's awesome to have you here. Welcome to our show tonight.
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you for that. I'm not sure I'd put myself quite at that point, but I really appreciate it. Yeah, one of my passions is to reach in and grab hold of that which is uniquely you, that creative part of you, whether you acknowledge it or not, and bring it to the surface and demonstrate that it's not some magical gift from above, but we're all born creative, and it's just a matter of reaching in and grabbing hold of it.
It's interesting you say we're all born creative. There's a quote that we are going to talk about for our quote of the night. It taps right into that whole point. We're going to get to that later, though. But before we do that, again, thank you so much for being on today. It's great to have you on our show, always, and I'm sure it's going to be a good, interesting, fun discussion. We also have with us today the photo video guy himself, Dr. Ross Chevalier.
Hey, gang. Brian, thanks very much for the invitation. Gabriel, Ron, great to see you.
Too.
Interesting. Today we shot a couple episodes of your new show.
Yes, 5 episodes, in fact. You lucky volunteer, you, and I want to thank you a lot for sitting in. Yeah, we're 10 down, 3 to go on season 1 of the Photo Video Guy, which will air on Rogers TV. First episode goes Sunday, September 28th at 7 p.m.
Sunday. That's awesome. Well, it was a lot of fun being on the show with you today. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Awesome.
And anytime you need me, I'm always there for you. Yeah, so airing the end of September.
Work on Friday?
Actually, I am, but we'll have to talk about that. I have to clear it with the boss. Anyway, so maybe I shouldn't have said anytime. Hey, we'll get to that. Okay, so why don't we start talking about the whole meat and potatoes of tonight's show. We have a lot to cover, and before we get to that, I just want to remind everybody, if you're watching us live, please join in the Q&A. It's just a little thing along the left side of the window here. Click on that and type your questions in. Let us know you're here. In fact, if one of our viewers could just let us know that the Q&A is working. There has been issues in the past with that actually working, so just to simply say, hey, it's working, hi, how are you, whatever you want to say, that'd be fantastic. It should be working because we don't have all those other new apps on. What is with that? How come they have all these new fun apps and they ask you to use them, but you can't use them at the same time? Makes no sense.
I got to tell you, I wouldn't want to be a programmer at the back end of this platform because it's really got to be a nightmare to try and make everything play nice together. But having said that, the tools that we do have are pretty phenomenal.
No doubt, absolutely, and yeah, thank Google for the tools that we do have. And on that thread, of course, if you are watching our show after the fact on YouTube, then click like, subscribe, share it with your friends, let them all know that we're trying to have a lot of fun and help people out with their photography through doing this fun show. All right, so thank you, Joseph. Hello. Obviously, the Q&A is working. Beautiful.
Hello.
Oh, there it just popped up. Hi, Joseph.
Beautiful. Okay, so keep that in mind, everybody. The Q&A is working, so go ahead and pose your questions and make your comments to us if anything that we say strikes a chord and you want to join in on the chat. Now, of course, now lots of people are doing that, so we'll get to that in just a minute. Now, here's the thing for me, Ron. A lot of time when I'm out shooting, I'll see something, it catches my eye, makes me want to stop, makes me want to pull over to the side of the road or stop on this trail and get out my gear and set up my tripod and make this shot. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, this is great. I'm going to love this photo. I was just at the Y Marsh yesterday with my wife, and I was inside the Martyrs Shrine, this amazing church, and I'm taking these photos thinking, oh, these are going to be amazing. I get home, and I have a whole memory card full of crap. So it's like, how do I translate what I'm thinking into a very fun, artistic amazing photo. I know it's not an easy question to answer, but is there something that you think about when you're about to squeeze the shutter to remind yourself, hey, this has got to look good, and this is how I can make it happen?
You're right. That's a deep well that you opened up. One of the probably the best pieces of advice I can give someone that happens to is make it almost a mission to learn how to see the way your camera does and not the way your eyes do. Because when we go out, I don't know how many times I've heard, oh, you should have or been there and seen this particular thing. It would have made a great photograph. Or a person tells me, oh, come over to my place and look off my porch. There's an amazing photograph. And you go over and you look at it as a photographer, and you look at it and go, yeah, that's nice. You understand that it doesn't translate into an amazing image, even though it might be an amazing experience. And so one of the things I do, and one of the very first mentorships I ran online is one that I still do called Enhancing Creativity. In that program, what I bring people to is to begin to see through the eye of the camera and their brain, make it a connection, almost like an appendage. And so we're not just thinking through our emotional response, but also seeing through our critical eye.
That's a very, very good suggestion. If you think about it, every lens that you use has a different perspective. Every angle you shoot from gives it a different feel. So to learn how that's going to look and translate into something interesting while you're shooting, that's a very, very good tip.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I didn't think I could condense it, but I guess I did a little.
You sure did. And before we go any further, I totally bypassed my good buddy Gabriel. Sir, is your mic working? Is everything okay? I'll take that as a no. Okay. All right. Well, Gabriel is with us.
What's the matter with you, boy? Your lips are moving and no sound coming out.
Little foghorn leghorn right there. Yes, I'm dating myself.
Okay, can you hear me? There we go.
It's working.
Yeah,
okay, there we go.
All right, good.
I was trying to comment on Ron's fantastic point earlier, where to the same vein where you see you're told about a picture and you go there and through a camera it's not going to work. And I've had situations that were breathtaking that I never even bothered to pull my camera out because, well, it looks beautiful to your eyes. You know that the camera's just not going to capture it. So
yeah, and that's a tough one to learn. And the only thing that can help that along is to be intentional when you shoot with that in mind, and to do it enough. Mm-hmm. You begin to recognize how the camera sees compared to how you feel about the image that you're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of times photographers will show what they think is their best picture, and it really isn't, but because they have such an emotional attachment to that image, to them it's their best picture.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, completely.
Actually, during one of my reviews in the Arcanum with Jessica Lark, exactly the same thing. A photo that I felt very attached to, I thought was something that I should include in my 5 photos for the photo critique. And when I suggested that to the community, the overwhelming response was, no, that's not an image you want to be putting in there. And it's interesting to hear people's different interpretations of your work. It's one thing when we do our photo reviews here, which we're going to do later, we talk about the photos that we see. It's a totally different thing when you're actually going for a true critique and you want to learn all the nitty-gritties about what's right and wrong, and you hear these opinions that are just like, wow, I never even saw it from that perspective.
Yeah, and I as far as the conversation with that goes tonight, I have a couple of examples that I can pull up in Lightroom and on a blog post that addresses this idea. But as you know, today I put out a blog post, one of a couple, called Get Over It.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tongue-in-cheek quip about how to deal with the creative rut. And I see that a lot because I offer courses in enhancing creativity and specifically designed to help people get over the creative rut. I've seen something over and over and over again. I have to admit, when I first thought about introducing this, I was a little bit scared because although it applied to me in my life, I wasn't sure it would really apply to everybody, and I was afraid I'd get a lot of resistance about it.
Yeah, I don't think you will. I mean, I think pretty much everybody has had moments of self-doubt, and everybody's had moments of concern of, am I good enough, or who am I shooting for? What am I shooting for? Is it worth it? I know I have that happen to me every day. Should I keep Daytripper going? Should I, even just today I was talking with Ross, like, I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if whatever. You always go through these moments of doubt, and I think ultimately what we need to do is go back to these tools that we're given through experience and try and draw from that to keep us going.
Yeah, and so the way I addressed it is I had a fantastic art teacher when I was learning watercolor painting. He came from a background where the days were still when they did illustration for the news clips, and he would have to create news clip illustrations on the spot in seconds for the upcoming news events. And he said he learned something really quickly when he started doing that, and that was it didn't matter how he felt about it, he could still do it. And that began the seed for my blog, my series of posts that I'll be putting up, but the initial post of Get Over It, is that creativity, as artists, we think that our creative world depends on how we feel. And that's why we say things like, I've lost my mojo, I don't feel it, I'm in a rut, I'm not creative. If you first establish, and I'm going to establish this right now, that we're all creative, we were born creative. We don't have any trouble being creative when we're children. We play and we imagine and we pretend and we're engaged in this world of great creativity. We somehow cross the line as we become adults and we begin to think analytically that we need to feel like being creative to be creative. What we forget is that being creative is not what you feel like. Being creative is who you are. So you need to make a mental separation and just say, I can still produce work in spite of how I feel that's phenomenal. And a lot of us have done it. Anyone who's had to put bread on the table as a result of a creative field has learned that they can produce good work and often great work in spite of losing that feeling.
Yeah, that's a good point. You have to. I mean, especially if you do this as a living. If you don't, you might as well just, be paying other people to do nothing. So one of the things that you just kind of reminded me of when I was really training myself to sell, to be a salesperson, there was a person that I listened to quite regularly named Brian Tracy, and his ways of explaining things to me just kind of hit a nerve with me and made sense to me. And as far as, being creative, it's something I fall back on quite regularly. Is if one of the things he says is everybody is creative. If you're driving down the road and it's a busy road and you make an alternate route, that's being creative. Choosing what you want to wear in the morning, that's being creative. Anything you do where there's a choice to be made shows your creativity. And if you can just kind of believe that and remember that you are a creative person and you do creative things, you can carry that forward to all the things that you do in life. Art, photography, drawing, you name it, music. I know you're a musician as well. So actually there's pretty much a full panel of musicians here, save for maybe one. Gabriel, you play the kazoo, don't you? You're still muted. Still muted. There you go.
I play the harmonica.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, harmonica is a good instrument. So I just want to walk down that path a little bit because some people might say, and I do get some resistance to this, is that how do you get out of that feeling? And the honest answer is there's no one great answer. That the way that we get back on track or we find inspiration has been written about and talked about for centuries, and there's many, many, many ideas. But one of the reoccurring themes that I found, and hopefully I can leave with anybody watching this, is that quite often our inspiration comes when we're doing something else. Something completely not what we think we should be doing when we're being creative, like washing the dishes or going for a walk, or I found one of the most creative mental times for me when I was doing a mundane, repeatable task. For example, like, and I'm not saying go work on a factory line. I'm just saying that creative ideas often happen when you're not actually engaging in the project you're trying to be creative in. They just come and they kind of blindside you. And so that's leads to the discussion about having a creative playground, somewhere where you can go and feel free to fail wonderfully and just allow yourself space that you don't have to perform at a level. And it doesn't even have to be in photography necessarily. You just want to engage, and the second part of that is engage with other people. When we isolate as artists, as human individuals, our creativity is extremely stifled for the most part. I won't say there aren't exceptions. I think our ideas come from community. They come from discussions like this. They come from things like the Arcanum, where we have these beautiful little core communities that are growing at these enormous rates together. And so I have a quote. I'm going to read it out, and I love it. And it's by George Bernard Shaw, and he said, and this is really interesting. He says, if I have an apple and you have an apple and we exchange the apples, then we both each still have one apple. He says, but if you have an idea and I have an idea and we exchange the ideas, then each of us has two ideas. And that is how relationship and inspiration works.
Excellent. Yeah, the article that you wrote was fantastic. The "I'm busier than you are" syndrome sticks out in my mind. Just to quote your words here, it is fine to have busy seasons in life, but our inner artist, the creative within us, needs space to play and create and dream. We need time and an environment that allows us to experiment, to not get it right all the time. That's a kicker for me, to not get it right all the time. You have to, and I say this all the time, you have to give yourself permission to make mistakes and be real and a human. Those are my words, not yours.
Yeah.
To not get it right all the time, to frolic in our imaginations and form new concepts. The creative person needs this desperately, along with our structured everyday routines. They go hand in hand too. It's brilliant when you put it that way. I mean, so many of us go through our day-to-day life and think that it's the humdrum, it's the downtime. But as you say, these are the times that we're in the back of our mind. We're building up the creativity. We're drawing from that. We're giving ourselves inspiration even through the slow times. And we have to give ourselves permission once in a while to say, yeah, that's okay to do that.
Yeah, exactly. It is perfectly okay. And we need to come up against our walls, and we need to come up against things that we have to overcome. Our human character needs a victory to claim. And if we were always riding on maximum, suddenly that would become boring. And so we need that hill and valley. And when we're in the valley or we're climbing the hill, it doesn't change the fact that we're creative and we can continue to create good work. It just means we feel differently and we're facing different challenges. I just want to make sure that everyone understands my perspective is that I believe wholeheartedly that we were born creative, and that when we don't feel like it, we're still creative.
You know, it's an interesting set of things that you say, Ron. One of my personal heroes is Professor Einstein, and one of his most famous quotes is, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." What does he mean? It's about how you approach things. You use the analogy where your mind is not fully occupied by the task at hand, and so you think about something that you weren't really focused on thinking about. There's a principle in mental psychology around two modes of thought, linear thinking and geometric thinking. The creative process inherently, if you read what artists have to say about what they've accomplished, and any kind of artist, sculptor, painter, photographer, a writer, they'll all tell you that if I force myself in a geometric line of thought, do this, do this, do this, do this, they're creating a tunnel. They create a tube. They can't get out of it. But when they're not forcing themselves in the geometric path, their thoughts bounce all over the place. And it's like when you have one of those wonderful lucid dreams where you know you're asleep, you know you're dreaming, and you get to direct it in a little interesting way. That really unlocks a lot of this. So I think it's even more than just the creative process as an artist. It's the whole process of being alive.
You hit it right on the head. It's true. Yeah, I think visual artists, people who paint and create out of thin air, need to dance in the geometric form more often, if I can make that analogy. Photographers who are capturing what's in front of them need to build a solid foundation. There's almost a science behind capturing a great image that's irrelevant of our creative process. An image has to have certain qualities to it to have impact. The artist creating from nothing needs to dig in a little deeper to begin that process, I think, than the photographer, where the photographer, generally speaking, starts with something that already exists.
You get something at the corner of your eye that inspires you, it triggers that initial instinct, and that's what you go for. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I was just on a thought there, and it eluded me because I think I went into my geometric mind. I don't know. I think about, I know one of the great analogies, I use this in, because with regard to keeping our creativity, I use the kind of the idea that if we take it away from photography for a minute, and let's just pick a task that most of us can relate to, especially women. I'm not being sexist, but most women raise their children at a very young age and have menial tasks that they have to do every day, and they don't necessarily want to do them, nor do they feel like it. But one of those tasks is reading at night to your kids. It's something we did with our kids when they were young, and I was fortunate enough to be able to stay home with a couple of my kids when they were young. And the nighttime reading ritual was occasionally a real stretch, a real chore. I mean, you're exhausted. Kids are going to bed late. Sorry, honey, she's off in the background there. My youngest. And you don't have the energy or want to read. You don't. It's not in you. You really, the last thing in the world you want to do is that you just want to turn the TV on and that's it. Mm-hmm. But you get up because you have a routine and you're obligated and you love your kids, and you start reading. And by page 3 or 4, doesn't it figure? You're enjoying it. And you're enthusiastic, and you want to get to the end of the story. Even though you've read it 100 times, you love getting to the end and seeing what happens. And I liken that to the idea that we don't need to feel creative to be creative.
And I think experience definitely is one of those tools that could help you get out of those ruts when you're feeling down. Mm-hmm. You can draw from those times where you've had issues in the past, and you're able to inspire yourself by telling yourself that, yes, I am creative, I can do these things. And the more you do that, the more you learn how to get out of that kind of situation yourself. I don't know if I'm one to really talk. I mean, for Daytripper Photo, I'm blessed that at any given time I can be in a completely different place with really fun people, and I'm getting inspired by them, and they're getting inspired by me, and it's just a real fun relationship. As you say, it's really a good idea to have other people and to share these experiences together. So I'm blessed that on day trips I have that opportunity. And I'm just looking on Sunday, we're going up to the Wye Marsh, and Ross is going to be coming along on that one, and it's going to be so much fun. The first thing he says when he sees one of the photos is, "Hey, can I bring some lights and some flash, and we can maybe ask some of the people that are working there in their native clothing to model for us?" And I'm just thinking, yeah, that's so cool. Like, all of a sudden, this trip that I've been looking forward to takes on a completely different twist and is even more exciting, just from one idea. And that's the beauty of having the community.
Having other people's input. I mean, just getting that process happening. That's fantastic.
It's funny you should mention that, because I had a picture already queued up for when you and I were in that undisclosed area on that undisclosed highway that hasn't opened yet, and we were doing some steel wool photography, and I brought all the steel wool, but you brought your flashes, and I don't know if that's showing up. Yes, it is. So we got this really cool shot underneath the bridge. and I brought the steel wool, but then we got this awesome effect of the cool light flying behind me, shooting up behind me, and the shadow on the top of the bridge, and those were the flashes that you brought. So, you know, like I said earlier, you now have two ideas, you know, when two people share ideas, but you also have more gear. So.
And that's definitely important, to be able to, you know, snafu somebody else's gear at any moment you want. So that's really wonderful.
Actually, on that point, it's interesting because the flash idea came from the Arcanum. In one of my photo critiques with Jessica, I showed her a photo of Gabriel doing the steel wool, and she said, wouldn't it be great if, you know, he was much more defined and you can see him more? And we started talking about, well, what if you use flash and you lit it from over here? And that the next time I went out shooting steel wool, that's the first thing I wanted to do, is bring the flashes and try something different.
If I can bend your ears, or actually your eyes, just for a couple minutes more, because I know you have more to cover in your show and I don't want to capitalize.
Go right ahead.
I just want to share a couple of images in my Lightroom that reflect my idea of creativity. One, first of all, coming from somewhere unexpected, that led to an image being finished, and a couple other images. And while I do that screen share, I'm just going to, before I do that, just share this probably my favorite quote in the whole world regarding this, and it's by Eugene H. Peterson, and it says that the great masters of imagination don't make things out of thin air. They direct our attention to what is right before our eyes, and with their help we see it not as commonplace, but as magnificent, and not as time-worn, but as timeless. And so I just wanted to share that little bit of kind of my view on creativity, and I'll just share an image here. And so this Lake Superior National Park on the Awasi Trail, I went for a hike, and we got up really early in the morning before it was light. And if you know me, that is an immense amount of work, just getting my feet on the floor at 4 in the morning. And I had this dream of getting these interior forest in the mist shot. But the reality of the situation, and let me go to that, the reality of this situation looked more like this. There was a perfectly blue sky, a little bit of haze, no fog, no mist, high contrast. It was a flop. My friend was rushing in front of me, and I snapped a picture. And this is about being aware of kind of your failures, you know, or being open to things that aren't necessarily on your radar in regard to creativity. Snap this picture. So my friend is rushing off in front of me. I snapped the picture. I looked down at my viewfinder, and I said, I think I can do something with this. And it led me to come home and pull into Photoshop this image, which eventually became this image, inspired by this mistake.
So you saw the streaks and you saw the mood of this photo and applied that thought.
And I poured it in, and I said, you know what, I don't need, because I had driven 10 hours and hiked 2 days, and I was, you know, you're out in the wilderness and you can't go back. You don't get a second shot. And so creativity, seeing this, and then kind of the thing I had in my mind was this light coming through these trees, led me to complete it like this as a creative person, by digging into that well of creativity and using the tools I had at hand. Obviously a lot of Photoshop, but and I make no apology in using Photoshop to be creative. And so another one is in the idea, before we close off, is the get over it thing, and it's my quip, and I say it jokingly, but we had been shooting, it was 25 below Celsius, my camera was getting frost. If you look at my little plastic cover on the back and you see a shiny spot, that's where I had just gotten frostbite off my nose. No word of a lie, seriously. I let my nose touch my camera, and suddenly it bit me, it stung.
Ow.
But what happened while we were out there, and you can see it's a very gray grayish. It was a lot darker than it seems in this picture. I brought the image up quite a bit. But the picture I was taking in a few minutes from there, because right now it's on horizontal, I moved to vertical, and I captured this picture. Now it was gray and it was dull, and it was really cold, and all I want to do at this point is go back to the hotel and get a coffee. And then the sky opened up just for a moment, and I said, oh, that's it, that's it, that's it. And that was the shot that day, right there in that moment. Now again, there is Photoshop, but not as much as there may seem to be. It's not, it wasn't hours of Photoshop. There are not a lot of intense enhancements here.
Nice and moody. I love it.
Yeah.
Actually, Gary Monroe just made a comment in the Q&A. He says, is the way Ron's brain works common amongst his people back on his planet? Awesome nothing to something stuff.
Thank you, Gary. Yes, it is pretty common on my planet.
and good for you, Ron. I mean, those are really nice shots. I'd like your thoughts on guidance that I've received from one of my mentors, my mentor in composition design, a brilliant American photographer by the name of Joe Glida. He's written several books on food photography, aviation photography, and Joe finds himself, because he's been a pro for over 40 years, he finds himself, and I'll use those words, trapped from time to time. So what he does is he gives himself self-assignments.
Yeah.
Fixed period of time, go make something. And every year at Photoshop World, you may have seen him because I think you were there last August.
Yeah, I was there last year, yeah.
And he's usually up on the panel. I don't know if you saw the one where he took the 2 stuffed bunnies to Las Vegas.
No, I wasn't in on that one.
So he's got these 2 stuffed bunnies, and they go to Vegas. And his whole process was, okay, this is what I've given myself a job to do. Make photographs with these 2 stuffed bunnies. And the life of what happens to these bunnies, from being nice bunnies to drunken down and out on the street, just, it's magnificent work. And Joe does this every year, and every year he's hilarious. Now, because this is a family show, I can't relay the story about this year's project where he wasn't prepared. But Moose Peterson was going to the Hoover Dam. So Joe's project was a dam project.
It's a dam project, was it?
And it went kind of south from there. So what do you think about that idea, about just when you're stuck, push yourself. Give yourself that self-assignment.
I love that advice, and it's almost universal, but some people, in my experience, for whatever reason, find it works the opposite way. For most people, I think, taking on a project like a 52-week project or a self-assignment or getting stimulated some way is amazing advice, as long as you give yourself permission to not set the bar so high. When you're taking on something like a 365, you have to kind of build in time to let the bar lower, because again, you're trying to ride the crest too long. And that's just my advice. I think it's fantastic. That's an excellent way to stay inspired for almost everybody. For some people, it backfires because I think they keep the bar a little too high.
Well, I certainly echo your concerns about 365s. I know with a number of my students and mentees doing some of the work similar to yourself, they start these and they get into this massive level of depression because they're not keeping up, or they're not happy with the work every single day.
Yeah, they compare it to people who have spent 20 years to create a portfolio, and they think that over the next 365 days they're going to have 364 masterpieces. And yeah, I did. I'll confess, I did a 365 once, and I made it halfway through. I allowed myself time to have days off, and I said, if I don't make it all the way through, that's fine. I'm in it for the daily experience, and it accelerated my photography. But I built in that the 365 wasn't the goal. The day 365 wasn't the goal. It was just the daily project of being observant and having my camera.
I actually attempted a 365 myself, and I think I made it to day 8.
Yeah.
You all made it further than me.
So yeah, I'm not opposed to any self-guided project as long as you're realistic about the expectations and you allow yourself the to bring that bar down, so you don't have to keep hitting that mark so high. We need the ebb and flow, like I mentioned earlier. I'm going to share with you one more image, and I'm sharing with it, and I don't know, my son's at college tonight, he'll get home late. He'll get upset if he sees this shared, so I'm going to share it while he's not home.
I won't tell Josh, it's all good.
Actually, there's yeah. So this image here, I got up at 5 in the morning to get a sunrise on Georgian Bay, and it was totally overcast, and it was raining. And because I say the mantra, get over it, I put my feet on the floor, I looked out and said, you know what, it's not pouring, it's just spitting a bit. Maybe I should just go see if it's going to break up. Because if I only go when I think the conditions are ideal, when is that going to be and what is ideal? Mm-hmm. And so likely the most ideal condition is lousy just before this happens. That same day, about a half hour later, this image was taken.
Wow.
It moved out that quickly, and it created that much drama. And my son, 10 minutes before this happened, said, oh, I'm going back to bed, nothing's going to happen.
Oh.
And he went back to bed. This is a 36 image stitch. It goes from shore to shore.
Wow.
But this is what happens when you just kind of say that to yourself, and not in a derogatory way. You just say, today I'm going to get over it. I'm going to get out there, and I'm going to go in a condition I think is not necessarily ideal yet, but might be.
No. I'm just remembering one night, sorry, just quick little side story where I was out there. It was the middle of the lightning storm, and I was trying to get some really cool photography, and I was waiting for that moment. My wife called me, and I'm on the side of the road next to my car with my golf umbrella up, just soaked. The umbrella is really just for the camera at that point. And she's like, so how's it going? I'm like, well, I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just doesn't work out. But you're right, you have to get out there, because that could have been the night that I got that awesome shot.
I just want to ask a question. If I heard you right, you're standing at the side of the road outside your car.
Yeah.
In a lightning and rainstorm, holding a metal pole above your head.
Wasn't quite there yet.
Okay, note to self: don't go places with Gabe.
Oh, that's the most fun.
So, Brian, I want to let you in on a little bit about how you're part of this whole story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. A few years back, you ran a photo walk. I think it was at one of the Kelby photo walks in Newmarket. And that morning it rained, and I was there. And I had, in my camera bag, I had one of the affordable little rain covers for my camera, and I took pictures that day in spite of the conditions. And when that happened, it led me further down this path, and I remember it as a defining moment that we did that photo walk anyway. And everybody had a great time, in spite of the fact that it rained.
The people that didn't leave had a great time.
Yeah, well, that's just it. There were people that said, I came here to take pictures, and that's what I'm going to do. And they kept with their assignment, and then we met afterwards. And I just want to let you know that was actually one of those pivotal times when it made an impression on me.
Excellent. That's very cool. You just never know how you can influence other people. One of the things I've learned through doing Daytripper is, 5-10 years down the road, like in this situation, it was about 5 years ago or so, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You hear stories about something that you said or did that did give somebody some inspiration. I love that. Absolutely love that. That's excellent. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't realize.
Yeah, just thought I'd let you know, because it comes up a lot, and I think back on that day, and it was pivotal for me just getting over it.
And actually,
if I can interject, I will guarantee that this year's Kelby Photo Walk is going no matter what the weather.
Yeah.
because, again, for the third year in a row, I'm an idiot, and I've signed up to lead one.
And I will be on that photo walk with you. So, rain or shine, that'll be a lot of fun. One of the questions I have, would you say that putting yourself in uncomfortable situations is a really decent idea? I'm not talking about standing in front of a train as it's coming at you. I'm talking more just like what Gabriel, Ross, and I have done. And Ron, I believe you were with us. Yeah, you were with us one of the times that we were at this abandoned camp.
I'll neither acknowledge nor deny that I was there.
Exactly. But here we are.
Location at an unnamed time on an
it's potentially a situation which could, you know, get dicey at times, and you put yourself in these situations, and it really does inspire you to come out of your shell a little bit. Would you agree that putting yourself in situations like that is probably a good thing for your photography, or would you kind of warn against some of that?
I would say, generally speaking, as long as you're not violating your own moral character, and what we had done there at that abandoned place was very benign, and they weren't aggressively, you know, it's not fenced off, and they're not aggressively patrolling it. But in general, I'll go even broader than that, and I'll say that you're not hitting the next mark until you're out of your comfort zone. And as much as I would love to sit and say that, you know, we can just sit in our great little zone and be great all the time, and great results don't happen until you move beyond what you're already comfortable with, and that's just a fact.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Another thing I've noticed in my own photography is I've noticed the best images that I've made happen by turning the wrong corner, or, you know, making a mistake while I was trying to get somewhere and trying to weasel way back or something and seeing something completely different. The biggest mistakes I've made have given me my best photos. And I think that lends well to the whole point that, you know, try different things. Get out there and put yourself in these situations that you may not have been as comfortable with. So whether it's a mistake or it's planned or not, the more you do, the more experience you gain, the more tools you have to bring yourself out of these ruts and out of these frustrating times.
Yeah, I've watched over and over and over again as timid and withdrawn students, people who are really stretching, really giving it their all to move out of their comfort zone, seeing them expand in ways that would literally bring a tear to your eyes. You see them grow in ways, and it goes beyond photography, and it reaches something much deeper when somebody sees the kind of success they could have by stepping out of that zone with the guidance of an experienced mentor, guide, master, teacher, you know, parent. They're not in it. I think a big part of it is they're not in it on their own. They have guidance, but they're willing to take that step into really unknown territory.
Mm-hmm.
Great things.
All right. Well, let's kind of start to wrap up. I do have one last question, and it is a fairly vague question. What tips can you leave us with to help us keep connected to our inner artist?
Well, that wasn't in the contract. I don't think I can answer that.
That's an extra fee.
That costs extra, man.
Yeah. I would definitely say engage in something regularly that gets you involved in a community and takes you out of your comfort zone. Whether it's specifically related to photography or a hobby or your craft or not. One of the greatest things that I engage in, and I rarely get amazing shots when I'm doing it, is photo walks, for example. I love to get together with other photographers and go on photo walks, and most of the time you'll just find me gabbing with people with a camera around my neck, just because of the experience, getting outside of my regular routine and engaging with other creative people. My number one tip, get out of your regular routine, engage with other creative people.
Beautiful. I definitely can see the benefit in that. I've actually only been on 2 photo walks. The one that I did, the Kelby walk, and the other photo walk was also with you, Ron, when you sang me happy birthday from across the water.
That was fun.
That was very fun. That was awesome. So I totally concur. I think going on photo walks and reaching out and being part of community is a huge thing, which is why, you know, we really started the whole Daytripper photo community, is to give people very solid resource of inspiration and motivation without having to worry about ego and attitude and all the things that come along with the whole art world sometimes. I'm better than you are. My art's better than you. That just turns people off, and not my bag. Ross, have you got anything that you'd like to share as far as things that you use to get yourself out of a rut? I know that, for the Newmarket Camera Club, there's a certain theme that you've been following with your photo challenges that I find extremely interesting. Was that to get yourself into something different and more creative, or was that just something that you thought, hey, that'd be cool, let's try it?
I really, I can't say that I put a huge amount of thought into using classic rock and jazz album titles as progenitors for themes, but as you mentioned earlier, there is an affinity often between photographers who are also musicians, and it just seemed to be a neat fit. And I also grew up as part of that generation before there were CDs, where you would spend a lot of time looking at the artwork that went into an album cover. And some of those classic album covers, even back to the 50s when they were really just photographs, they create a mood and they tell a story. I think of the famous Miles Davis album, Kind of Blue. It's not a particularly fancy album cover, but boy, does it tell an incredible story. And so I just thought of the idea of using album names as a way to inspire people to go look. And you know what? We see it every month. Sometimes the responses are, yeah, well, the title was this, the photo is this. But very often the title was this, and it took somebody to a completely new place, and they come back and they're really excited. Oh, how bad can that be?
Not bad at all. In fact, you've taken it one step further, and you've taken the album title and turned it into a book cover.
Well, I did that because I wanted to challenge myself to be able to create book covers. Take the album title. What does that mean? How could I spin that into a book cover? I tend to favor old style Western novels or mystery spy thrillers, and it happened to work out for me. But the thing is, it just becomes a locus around which I can start to do some work. It's kind of like one of the things that you and Gabriel did back in the early days of this show. What did you call it? Where you had to do 10 shots and they had to be like a foot or a meter or something.
Naked photography, yeah.
I was actually looking at those original 10 shots that I did for that show, and they gave me an idea to go do something else. So sometimes your own work can be another locus point to go do something else. So it never hurts to look at the stuff that you took 2-3 years ago. It might be a launch point for something new.
That's a great, actually really great advice. I was mentioning to you earlier on the TV show how I was looking through some old wrestling photos to find something, and I found these pictures of wrestlers that have since become a lot more well-known and so on. And looking at my images from back then, this is 2012. It's only been 2 years since then, and yet everything I do now is so different. It was nice to go back and get a fresh look on where I've come from and so on. Gabriel, what do you do to keep yourself inspired and thinking fresh when it comes to photography?
I'm fortunate that I have a job where I'm on the road a lot, and I always have my camera with me at all times. And because I'm just always driving, I have the rule where, if I see something that inspires me, no matter where it is, I pull over and take it. Or if I'm going to a customer's, I'll park a few blocks away so I can walk in and stuff, and I always try and take at least 10 or 15 pictures a day. And my main thing is I'm aware of the world around me instead of just getting tunnel vision walking from one place to another. I'm always walking around and whistling and looking, and I think everybody thinks I'm a tourist because I'm like, ooh, and I've got a camera on and stuff. But
Gabe, I got to give you a lot of credit. To go back to one of the things that Ron said earlier, you allow yourself the time to pull over and make a photograph. A lot of us get stuck in cars, and we may see a shot, but most of us won't stop. So kudos to you for allowing yourself the time to stop.
And that's a rule in our car. I'm a photographer. My wife's a photographer. My 6-year-old's actually a pretty good photographer. He's got a good eye. He's just got a little Lumix point and shoot. But if any of us see a picture at any time, they just say pull over, and at the earliest safe time we pull over, and that person has as much time as they need to get the picture that they want. So it's sort of a household rule.
I don't know if it fully applies to the conversation here or not, but Gabriel does something cooler than anything I've ever seen. When we all were born, our parents did the photo book thing for our baby book. I don't know about you guys, but I know I was the third child, so my book is this thick, and my brother's book is this thick because he's the first child. So these things I have always loved. I cherish my book. In fact, it's right down here today. Gabriel did something completely different, which I find to be one of the most creative and interesting things, and he did it for his son. Gabe, explain what you did for Jaden when he was born with your Google account.
So I created a Gmail account for him, and I tied that Gmail account to a Google Plus profile. And I store, so it's not only a Google Plus profile, but it's also calendar. So whenever we create an event that has something to do with him, we invite him to it. And whenever we take any pictures that he's included in, we tag him in the pictures. And we're kind of sort of living our lives with him fully included in the digital world without him having any knowledge about it. So when he gets older, and we're, again, not sure what age this will be, but at some point we'll pass over the username and password for that. And when he goes in, he'll have a calendar record of what he was doing when he went to certain birthday parties, when, milestones, we went to Disney World and stuff like that. It's all already in his calendar. He'll have hundreds of albums of when we went to the Science Center, when we went to, this place and that place, and he'll already be tagged in all the albums.
Just makes you wonder how the creativity is going to be affected from youth of today with all the digital media resources that they have and all of the archives of everything they've ever done being captured and digitized for them for life. They can always go back and draw inspiration from those things. So it's just a whole different world now today than when we were younger. It's fascinating, the options and the resources we have.
It's like when he asked me the other day what games I played on my iPad when I was his age. And I had to explain to him that the iPad didn't exist until he was 2. It's like when you were born, the iPad didn't exist, and 2 and on, you started playing with Android and Apple tablets, and now it's just a part of your everyday life. So it's kind of hard for him to grok that.
Yeah, no kidding. And to scroll for a quick second, I'm a little bit bitter. Yes, I love my Sony Xperia Z2, but today they announced the new iPhone 6 Plus, which is the same size screen as my current phone, which I've been dying for iPhone to have. So
it's like twice the price, and anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go down that hole, we'll be here till midnight. So
that's a good point. Scroll. All right, we'll move it along. In fact, it's a good time to move it along because I don't know if this was maybe a very challenging photo assignment that we've given to everybody, but we got 6 photos for our photo challenge this week. Now, that's 6 photos. Thank you. Awesome. I'm glad you folks submitted your photos. But somebody explain this to me. Was the photo challenge difficult? Was everybody busy? What actually happened that we ended up with fewer photos than normal? Just curious. Maybe if somebody can let us know about that. But we're going to get to it, and we're going to start doing our quick review of the photos that were submitted. Gabriel, would you be so kind as to share the weekly photo challenge images with us?
Brian, I would.
That's because you're
so kind.
You're cool like that.
Let me start at the bottom here.
There you go.
Start.
You didn't have to go too far. No, up. There you are.
There?
Yep.
Bacon.
Lovely. Bacon's back.
That looks like some sort of Hogwarts thing or something.
It is totally a Hogwarts thing.
He's got a little lightning bolt up there.
So the concept of our photo challenge is to give people some ideas, some inspiration to make photos. And this week's photo challenge was be creative. Maybe I was a little vague. Maybe I should have been a little more specific. Like this week, we have something a little bit more specific. But what do you guys think about Chris's photo? Maybe Ross, you can start.
Well, I love Chris's photo. It is absolutely indicative of how Chris's mind works. I've had a wonderful opportunity where she's been part of one of my mentor programs. She is a marvelous geometric thinker, and bacon's a big part of her life. I love his expression in this photo, but more importantly, she's drawn on a number of different potential influences, and she's pulled them together in something that's very interesting. And you don't have to know Bacon, and you don't even have to know Chris to look at this and get a lot of joy out of looking at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Very well said. Ron, what do you think?
I can't. Here I go. This is going to date me, but I keep thinking about that dog chow commercial. You know, the one that says, "Oh, dog chow tastes great. What's it look like?" You're all too young for that.
Actually,
but they have all these different dogs.
I'm not too young, but thanks very much.
Yeah. Anyway, they have all these dogs that have different expressions, and this is the one that goes, "Dog chow tastes great." You know. It's just beautiful. Really well done.
Chris's images of bacon are fantastic. She's had bacon and eggs. She's had bacon, lettuce, and tomato. I mean, it's just brilliant. It's fun, and that's the best thing that I could take away from any dealing I've ever had with Chris is she's very fun, and she definitely, as Ross suggests, she puts that out in her artwork. Gabriel, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it's if the theme is be creative, it's definitely creative. It's well done. It's well implemented. You can tell that there's several images in there, and then she's taken a couple things. I'm guessing she's a bit of a Harry Potter fan and a bit of a Bacon fan. So meshing them all together, that's one of the beauties of the power of Photoshop is to be able to take elements from one image that you like and move them into others.
It's a very, very well done composite with the moon in the background and the little sparklies over the food and the books.
Yeah, and I like the attention to detail to the point where you don't know what elements are part of what images. Were the sparklies over top of something else, that the food dish is covering, or were they added, or it all blends together very well.
Absolutely.
I'm looking at it, and Brian, and I'm thinking, hey, wait a second. There's a category in the Newmarket Camera Club photo contest for composites.
Yes, I thought that as well.
What an interesting possibility.
All right, excellent. What else is up there on our photo review list here?
Ah, right. That's me. So this one is from Joseph.
Before we get into this, I'm just going to quickly break to the Q&A for a quick second. Joseph Leduc says, "Great panel tonight. I've enjoyed the creative input from everyone. I'll visit this episode every time I need a good kick in the toe, but..."
Thanks, Joseph.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for watching.
Oh, we still have to go for coffee, by the way, Joseph, if you're still watching. We got to get together for coffee.
Coffee is very good. Are you going to get the dark roast from Tim Hortons?
Oh, I love Cover Notes over here, the organic fresh ground.
Ah.
Yeah.
I asked Ross earlier if he's had any of it, and if it's anything very good, he goes, "It's Tim Hortons coffee."
Which is to say that it's awesome.
All right, sorry. Let's get back to the image that we're talking about. Scrolling too much again. So this is Joseph's photo. All right, well, I mean, this is a great example of using the reflection of a very iconic landmark piece of architecture and seeing it from a different perspective. Now, we may have seen reflection photos in Toronto. I think this was a very well done shot, using the lines and using all the composition that he's brought in together to give it a different feel. What's your take on it, guys? Maybe this time, Ron, you can start.
Yeah, one of the things I like about it is that it's at a time of day when you don't just see the reflection, but you're actually seeing lights from the inside of the building, which makes it a little bit more unique than some other pictures I've seen that are similar. And it doesn't matter to me whether that was intentional or on purpose. It's important that it's recognized that that makes this picture more unique than others that are similar. Yeah, that's what I would say about it.
Anything else to add, guys?
Well, Ron's just said it. I think what makes this one more distinctive than what we've seen before, and I mean, let's face it, this is a relatively common thematic construct, is there's a pattern of the windows, there's a pattern of the lights, there's a pattern of vertical lines, and there's a repetitive pattern of the building that's reflected and its vertical lines that are also appearing. Patterns can be very effective ways to create both attention, but also, kind of an element of randomness, more of an artistic spray, an overlay, like a screen overlay on a shot. It makes it much more interesting with the lights, as Ron says, than it would have been otherwise.
Absolutely. Anything else to add, Gabriel?
I was trying to think of something deep and insightful, but they pretty much summed it all up. I always like shots like that. I like the idea of taking, one of the largest buildings in the world and just through reflections being able to fit it on what is a much smaller building. And it always sort of, I don't know, it brings this idea of fitting something larger into a container, into a smaller container. But that's just my weird mind.
Actually, it's not that weird. It's an interesting point.
Deep and insightful there, Gabriel.
Yeah, it actually reminds me of like a Don Komarechka thought, where the way that glass and light and lenses bends light, and the way that our eye perceives things. It's an interesting point. All right, let's move along.
We have Rhonda's.
Now,
cool.
I have to say, I have to give Rhonda a lot of credit. She stands true to her desire to try different things and try different filters and try different effects. She says very proudly that she loves HDRs that are very bold, and she loves effects that are very, very bold. And this is another one. Now, I have to say, the first thought I had was, and I mentioned this in our pre-chat, it reminds me a lot of the old video game Qbert, with all the little pedestals that the little guy jumped on. It's an interesting technique. What is it she called this technique?
Extrude.
The extrude tool. That's right.
Extrude filter.
So, do you guys have any thoughts on this image?
This reminds me of the split second in the Matrix, right before you see the code, where the world view that you have sort of zooms and then shatters, and then you see all the code after that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Gabe. That was great. No, I'm serious. I mean, you saw something there that I didn't see. I really I wasn't getting it, and what you've given me is another way to look at the image, and that's very helpful.
Excellent. All right, well, let's move along. We're kind of running low on time now, so
all right.
Luckily we only had the 6 images to talk about today. So,
so this one is from Phyllis.
Now, it looks to me like Phyllis has done multiple exposures, where you take an image and then layer a second image on in camera.
And that's with the Nikon D610. I know the 5D Mark III has that ability built right in.
Mm-hmm. So do the Nikons.
Okay.
Yes, 610.
Yep. It's a really fun effect. We've seen some results. I think, Gabriel, you opened my eyes to one lady who did this with the plants and then imposing the person's face in there. It's an amazing technique to master, but very difficult to find something that has that impact, as I mentioned this other photo with the branches and the trees and the person's face coming through there. It's a very dramatic difference to go from trees to a face rather than from one perspective on a bridge to a second perspective on a bridge. It's a great technique to master, and I think this is something that Phyllis should really look into doing a lot more of. And I'm eager to see what she does with this effect.
Okay, guys, I hate to be a downer here, but Brian, can you take over the screen share just for a second? I have to run upstairs. My wife just messaged me. She thinks that she hears a leak in the roof.
Oh, no!
Which would be...
I've been hearing that all night here. It's been raining so much.
Oh, yeah.
Not
But
really.
if you knew Gabriel's story with his new house, this is not a good thing.
My wonderful new house that has a built-in pool. It's called the Crawl Space, so that's been fun.
Oh,
so I'm just going to run upstairs really quick. I'm just going to stop the screen share. I'm going to run upstairs and poke my head in the attic and see if I can see anything. So hopefully I'll be back before the show ends. But if
before
not,
you go, if the show ends and you're not here, thank you very much for being on the panel. And I do agree with what Joseph said. I mean, this has been a great panel. Having the three of you on is just fantastic. I couldn't ask for anything better. So thank you, Gabriel. And if we're not around when you come back, then we love you, man.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, guys.
All right, see you.
Have you on.
All right. So here we go. I'll continue on with the screen share here. And again, as I say, luckily there's not too many photos because then I have to wake up at 4 in the morning to go to Algonquin tomorrow now. So here we go. Yeah, I know, 4 in the morning. Ron's shaking his head. Early.
Yeah.
I'm not good at that myself,
I'm proud of you, Brian. You're taking one for the team.
You know what? You got to give credit to Shelley because she's the one who's waking up with me and coming all the way. So that's pretty awesome. So
we're not laughing at you, Brian. We're laughing with you.
Yeah, right. It's funny when I told Shelley we're getting up at 4 in the morning, and we said or 5, maybe 6, depending on whenever we can actually get out of bed. We'll see what happens tomorrow. All right. So here is the duck with 6 legs and 2 butts, by the looks of it. This is another one of those using the multiple exposure techniques. Double dipping, she calls this, which is duck butt and regular duck.
He's double dipping. That's funny.
It's a great use of the tool. Learning what your camera can do and playing around with some of the settings that you have within your own camera it's a lot of fun to get into that, and you got to give Phyllis a lot of credit for delving into this technique. Have you guys done much with the multiple exposure in camera?
Yeah, in 1977.
No, I'm with Ron on this. It was a Minolta SR3. Hold in the rewind button and try to keep the frame.
Yeah, to stop the film from advancing.
So,
push the button.
No.
It's interesting though how the tools we have today to do the same things that we've always been able to do make it so much more accessible for people to try.
Yeah, it does, but it backfires because it's accessible and it's not easy, but it's easier to achieve. Some people, well, me anyway, I want to try it less because it's not so complicated anymore.
It's not such a unique thing for you to do.
Yeah. But that being said, there's a lot of people doing some amazing things with multiple exposure and blur photography. Yeah, I think I give anybody credit that's willing to. And this is what they're doing. They're going out of their comfort zone and they're willing to try new things.
Absolutely. And again, kudos to Phyllis for trying this. And I'm, again, very eager to see where she takes using that effect. And speaking of creating multiple exposures, here's a shot from Julie. Exactly that point. She was at a skate park and she did a multiple exposure of this young man doing a pretty funky trick on a skateboard. And of course, it's got that great Julie look, that nice bold colors and very clear defined edges, almost an HDR effect that she adds to this. What do you guys think of how Julie approached this shot?
I think that if I was that skateboard guy, that dude, I would want to hang this in my house. I think she's really captured the essence of skateboarding. The fact that, you know, there's the bit of the it's not really graffiti, but it's wall art behind.
Mm-hmm.
They're real nice, the balanced composition, and it's got real placement. And like I say, if I was that skateboarder, I would want that on my wall.
Yeah, I have to agree with Ron. This is a brilliant piece of work. How she's worked to bring the layers together and do the overlay. Makes it look super clean. But I also have to give her a lot of credit for her composition, because the spacing between each of the images of the skater is almost perfectly balanced, and I really like that. The other thing that I really love is the position of his hands in number 2 and number 4, where he's almost like he's touching the shoulders of himself in the third shot.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, and I really think that this pulls it together. This is a terrific shot. Definitely this is saleable work.
Very good point. And I think both of you said roughly the same thing, how this either saleable work or something that the skateboarder himself would want to have on his wall. This is an approach that you could take to, you know, give these guys artwork of something that they're obviously very proud of. They work very hard to master these moves and to not kill themselves every time they jump on a skateboard like I would do. So, yeah, that's great. And I think, Julie, this is something that you could definitely not maybe give to these guys, but offer to them as an option for them to invest in. Beautiful work. All right, and you know what, guys? That's the last image we have for our photo review.
Wow.
So this is the point of the show where we pick the top 3 photos to win the amazing prizes from our good friends at LensPen. Let's quickly go over the first, second, and third place prizes. I don't know, Ron, if you realize, but we're sponsored by LensPen now.
That's phenomenal. That's fantastic.
Oh, it's exciting. I'm absolutely stoked about it.
Does that mean that you get a lens pen? Kidding.
We can talk.
I think I'm supposed to stop spitting and wiping. I'm not so sure that's good for my lens.
Well, you know, as long as the lens is on and you're not doing that on the sensor, you know.
Yeah.
Although I saw an image from Ross earlier today that it looked that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, no, I took the lens off and sneezed on it.
Yeah, that was actually more like it. Beautiful stuff. Well, LensPen has great tools for that as well. The sensor pen and so on and so forth. Their whole lens sensor cleaning kit, excellent product. But what we're giving away today on the show, and again, thank you so much to Martin from LensPen and LensPen themselves for hooking us up with this gear to give away for our photo contest and for on day trips and so on. This is the LensPen cleaning kit, where you get the blower, the cloth, the sensor clear or the clear cloth, and the lens pen itself. Excellent product. That's for first place. Second place, we're giving away the LensPen tablet and pen kit. So the tablet cleaner, these are handy. I mean, we all have tablets. I mean, phones that have fingerprints and smudges all over them. These little guys, you can just pull it out, wipe it across a couple times, and it cleans it right up. And for third place, we're giving away the regular original lens pen, which is, I don't know how you guys feel, but in my opinion, it's one of the most essential tools in anybody's photography kit. Because if your lens isn't clean, you won't get focus.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm not sponsored or paid or have any affiliation with LensPen, and quite a while back, somebody had one and they said, "Here, use this," and they put it in my hand, and I used it, and I have had to get one ever since. It does the job it says it does exceptionally.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a great piece of kit. If you don't have at least 3 in your bag, you're crazy, because as soon as your friends see them, they're going to take 2 of them.
Yeah, I've definitely had a lot of that happening lately. Okay, so those are the prizes we're giving away, but just to give anybody an idea of where these guys are going with their product, this is their Smart Clear little utensil. Again, a very compact version of the device that you can use to clean your tablets and your other equipment. It's a very nice soft pad. And this is my favorite tool that I'm using right now. This is the camera lens pen. It's tiny. It's just super tiny. It can hang off of anything, and it's great for cleaning the small lens that we all have on our cell phones.
Oh, so, I'm going to need one of them for my new iPhone 6 Plus.
Nice. All right, back to the task at hand. The top 3 photos from this week's photo challenge. Going to go third place first. Third place again, you're going to get yourself the lens pen, because you know you don't already have one. Joseph. lens pen for his CN this week's photo challenge. For second place, we're going to give the photo or the tablet cleaner and lens pen to our friend Julie for her phone. We've got the effects, yes. And for first place prize this week, you're going to get the full cleaning kit. Goes to Chris with her photo, Being Creative with Bacon. So, excellent work, everybody, and thank you all so much for contributing to this week's photo challenge. The theme for next week, this coming week, now you should know, before we talk about the theme, is the actual show is going to be on fall colors. I know you don't want to hear it. Trust me. Some of you are getting really angry at me right now. Fall colors. That fall is just around the corner. Personally, my favorite time of year. I'm super excited. As you can see, we've got some fall things going on already. My wife's been around the house putting all the fall stuff. So this is a big fall family. And with the zombie walk coming up and everything, my favorite time of the year. I'm so excited. So fall colors is... Oh, Gabriel, you're back. How's the leak?
It wasn't a leak. It was
mice.
One of the eaves troughs isn't hung properly, and because the outside of our house is board and batten, it's dripping onto a piece of wood, which just sort of reverberates around the whole house. So it's all good. I'll just fix that eaves trough tomorrow, and all is good in the land. It's just everything else in the house that's broken.
Oh, no.
So, I was talking to her. Not last night, but the night before. I'm in the kitchen. We're just talking about everything that we have to fix, and I'm sort of leaning up against the faucet. And I was like, and then we'll do this, and we'll do this. We just have to prioritize it all. And I lift my hand, and the handle from the faucet comes up with my hand. I'm like, oh, for the love of Pete!
Oh, boy, the joy of home ownership.
At least you don't have squirrels.
Not in the house, no.
Just on the show.
No.
Very
just on the show.
All right.
I'm a happy boy.
Good to hear. Good to hear. All right, so the photo challenge for this coming week, since it's our fall colors episode next week, will be orange.
Orange.
Rhymes with orange?
I think orange needs this one. Yeah.
That's great. All right, so remember, guys, get out there, make some photos. And we always used to leave the show with a quote. We're going to start that back up again, and this is so fitting. And it's funny that Ron even kind of referenced this a few times. This is a quote from Pablo Picasso. Now, some guy that knows something about art. He says, "Every child is an artist. The problem is staying an artist when you grow up." And that's exactly what you were talking about.
That was perfect.
Absolutely, and that chose us before you even said that. How does these things work out? Brilliant. So every child is an artist. The problem is staying an artist when you grow up. So remember, guys, I don't know about ladies as much as maybe men, and again, I don't want to start this whole back and forth, but guys never grow up. We're always kids. We all have our toys. We all have our fun stuff. So remember that when we're out making photos. Be a kid. Have that artistic side come out. Challenge yourself with photo challenges and photo projects. Give yourselves some creative things to get into. Ron does something that inspires him, and that's write blog posts. And I know Gabriel does this as well. It's fascinating when you can sit down and put, pen to paper. I'm sorry, I'm old school, and come up with these really, really interesting things that inspire and motivate other people. So get that done yourself, guys. Get out there, be inspired, inspire everybody around you. Join the Daytripper Photo community. Watch our shows. We've got 96 other shows that we've already done, and each one of them has at least one nugget that's going to help you guys be inspired. That's our goal. So go back and watch some of the Daytripper Photo shows. And guys, show number 100 is just around the corner. I'm so excited.
That is exciting.
It's super exciting. So what I'm going to do for show number 100, I'm going to put out an open invitation to every guest we've ever had on the show and fill the entire panel and see if we can get really interesting conversations going when everybody's talking over everybody else. I mean, that's the best kind of show.
Plus, we're blowing up a cement truck, so stay tuned.
You just let the cat out of the bag, buddy. All right. Thank you all so much for being on the panel. Ron Clifford, sir, it's just fantastic that you came on today. We really, really appreciate it, and we'll have you on again as soon as we can.
Yeah, that's great, and I'd like to be on again at some point. I really enjoy talking with you guys, and anytime we can talk about my passions both for photography and creativity, I'm all game.
Beautiful. We'll hold you to that. Don't worry. And Ross, you know what? Just from shooting the episodes with you today, and all the things that you do for me and for Daytripper Photo, thank you so much for being a part of the show and for being a part of my life. And really appreciate spending time with you. It's great.
My pleasure. My honor to spend time with you and with everybody on the show. It's always great fun, always inspiring, and gives me a chance to babble.
We love the babble, especially in the copyright episode. That was supreme babble.
Holy crap. Boy, was that hard work.
I think we've had to, about 2 or 3 times since then, give public apologies to This Week in Photo. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. Gabriel, thank you so much for being on, with all the things you've got going on right now and everything that you do, and with all the cool things that we have coming up. I'm excited. I'm so excited. I can't talk about those things yet. But I told you.
The future is bright.
The future is very bright. So thank you, sir, for being on. And thank you, everybody, for watching this week and every week. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to get a hold of us. Brian at Daytripper Photo, you can get a hold of me. Ross, how can people find you in the real world?
It's pretty easy. It's thephotovideoguy.ca. Emails Ross at thephotovideoguy.ca. And, of course, if you're in the Newmarket Aurora area, consider joining Brian and I at the Newmarket Camera Club. Easy to find, newmarketcameraclub.ca.
We make these links so difficult to remember.
Yes, very hard.
What is the email for the Newmarket Camera Club? Brian at newmarketcameraclub.ca or Ross at newmarketcameraclub.ca. Very cool.
Very difficult.
Gabriel, where can folks get a hold of you, and what can you do to help people be more inspired and have a better life?
Well, in my photography career, we specialize in, we're doing a lot more newborn shoots recently, which has been a lot of fun. But we do family photography, special event photography, weddings, portraits. With fall coming up, we're getting really busy with weddings and family portraits. Headshots for your LinkedIn profile or anything like that. Yeah, basically, anything that involves me having a camera in my hand, I'm super happy. We serve the whole GTA. We just moved up to Keswick, so we do, from Keswick all the way down to the lakeshore on almost a daily basis. So,
no, out of Wapiskat, you're not going to get up to Kishkashwan? No? All right, just checking.
I don't know if there is anything north of us. Jackson's Point. There you go.
Everybody who lives in Barrie just hates it.
Yeah. And Ron, where can folks get a hold of you for your mentorship and all the amazing services you offer?
Yeah, that's really, really difficult again. I think it's, where is it, right there?
There it is.
I think it says ronclifford.com.
There you go.
Specifically about mentorship and education is learning.ronclifford.com. And best place to engage with me is on Google+. Just search for Ron Clifford. I'm in the orange jacket. And yeah, I love engaging with people, and don't be afraid to mention me into a post.
Excellent. Beautiful. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and again, thank the panel. And that's it for us tonight. Everybody have a great week. Don't forget about the photo challenge is orange. Submit your photos right away, and we'll be able to talk about that next week. All right, that's it for us. I'm going to hit stop broadcast, and we're out of here. Thanks, guys. Take care.